Okay, Shabbat Shalom. This is April 1st, 2017. And I want to mention some stuff here about the age of creation. Now, I don't have a lot of knowledge on this topic, but I'm mentioning it because a few thoughts came to me that I find kind of funny. So I'll just throw them out there so people can think of them as well when they're looking into this topic of the age of creation. You know, the Bible, of course, says he made the earth and everything in 6 days. He rested on the seventh day. And we've been taught a lot, 6 regular days. And then you got lots of people out there saying it's thousands or millions of years. And you've got even some Hebrews say millions of years as well. And some Christian theologians also say millions of years. And you know, the scientists, they're on both sides as well. So the millions of years, it does seem a little strange to me. Now, I'm considering everything these days because I've been telling you I'm rereading the Bible. But I wonder, with this millions of years, how correct that could possibly be. Because, listen to this question I jotted down. If it was really millions of years, then why are there not a lot of archaeological finds in the soil everywhere? Because remember, a lot of this talk hinges also around the whole story of the flood with Noah. And they'll say, yeah, but we have found stuff in the soil. I know, but you see, people talk about millions and millions and millions of years, some like 200 million years, some like half a billion, like some really, it's not like they're saying like even 2 million years or something. Like sometimes they go way, way above that. And so I'm thinking, for the amount of stuff that you have had that fit only a small amount of them in museums, and you can walk through the museum in a short time relatively and still jump in the car and get back home for work in the morning. And then the rest are just stored in boxes in a factory. Factories that are the same size of food factories where you store food or other supplies for whatever kind of company you have and so on. You know, it's not like a whole continent is storing all of these artifacts that they found from millions of years ago, from the live people who were living. So what I'm trying to say is that the amount of stuff found does not seem to me to equal like 100 million years of living or 500 million years of living and so on. It doesn't seem to match that amount. Because I would think that if it was many millions of years of living and a flood came and washed up stuff, shouldn't people now, but right then after the flood, begin to find an overwhelming amount of stuff? You say, oh, the flood settled stuff underneath. Well, if the flood is that much, shouldn't the flood have left a massive amount of artifacts sticking out at the top part of the soil as well, so you're walking everywhere and you're stepping on stuff? Yeah, you know, I had a fish tank years ago. I used to like those fish actually, big bubbler kind of fish, goldfish, and the blackmore. I like the blackmore, like his eyes were just so bulky. It looked funny, you know. And I stared at watching him, wondering why this thing was made in the first place. But it was amusing. And when I clean the fish tank, after they leave all the debris was there from the food, leftover food, and all the pooing that they did and so on. When I'm cleaning it and the stuff gets the sand, the little stone things get stirred up at the bottom, treat that like a flood then, because now it's stirring up. Treat those small stones or small pebbles as the earth, the dirt of the earth. So when the flood is going on now with me with this vacuum thing, I'm moving through all the little pebbles in there and it's raking up the debris at the bottom. It takes me extra time because all that debris, if I'm not using the vacuum, just goes everywhere and settles back on top. So, and it looks dirty. And eventually I just decided, you know what, I just gotta empty the whole thing, transfer the fish to some other water, take out the whole set of pebbles and so on, and just wash them, clean them, and strain out whatever, and get out this debris to just get it clean. So I go through all of that. So I'm thinking with this Noah's flood that if it was so many millions of years of stuff that man had built and was using for daily life, it should have been that overwhelming that it's everywhere when the flood is done. It's under the earth, it's sticking inside of mountains and sticking out of the sides of the mountains and sticking out of dirt as well. Instead, you find something here sticking out of the mountain here and there, and you find this or that here and there, but a lot of stuff you have to actually dig for them. You shouldn't have to dig as much. And if it's millions of years, then that would have given man time to live every damn place on the planet. But yet we can go to so many places on the planet, and you're not finding anything just washed up sticking out in an overwhelming amount unless you dig. All these places that we fly over in planes, it should have been, and even people who were living right after the flood should have left their records saying everywhere we go stuff is sticking out to further prove that this flood happened and we were going for millions and millions of years. I'm not saying the flood didn't happen. That's not what I'm saying. I believe the flood happened. I'm saying the millions of years part is the part I have trouble believing. Because look at all the space debris that they talk about. And look at all the garbage that they have here. They're fighting over which city will take our garbage and I don't want any more of your garbage and whatever. It's so much garbage. Space debris plus garbage on the earth, it's a lot. It's just. And they show you the picture of the space debris is everywhere, and we've only been so-called space for just a little bit of time. Just on the edge of what we can tolerate to go. Or they, because they don't let me go there. And if you're seeing that in such a short time and they're complaining about the space debris, for example, then on Earth, if man is living for millions and millions and millions and millions and many millions of years, compared to the short time of building of space debris, shouldn't there be a massive and overwhelming amount of debris or garbage on the Earth? And structures and stone buildings and so on, so that the people who lived right after the flood would have had a difficult time trying to ignore that stuff. And today, the places on the earth where they're saying nobody lived, you can just go there and start a new community, start building up buildings there and set up a new place. And it's only once in a while you hear them say that, oh, okay, we were digging and we hit something. The crane hit something. Why? Because it's not, to me, it seems no millions and millions of years. Because we have too little findings. Findings should be popping out. You should be out in your backyard and you're just trying to plant your own small tree and you're coming up with something because there's stuff everywhere. Millions and millions of years mean that man would have gone everywhere. If only a short time, only a couple thousand years, we have traveled across seas and gone here and there. And since the airplane was made and so on, and boats and airplanes was made, we've gone all over the place. Why is it that for millions and millions of years, man did not go everywhere on the earth and build everything all over the place? It just seems a little suspect to me. Now think of this next point as well. Why are they poisoning the soil and the food on the earth? If in such a short time as we have for quote-unquote modern civilization and finding out about all this medicine and so on, it's being used, this medicine and poisons are being used to poison the soil and poison food in only recent times. Why is it that for millions and millions and millions of years that man has been living, that the soil was not bad and poisoned for millions of years? You think of even this European conquest and what these companies now that are poisoning our food and so on are doing, and poisoning the soil and so on. If in such a short time they could have done this, then you're telling me man who was evil for millions and millions of years, that he never got to this point where he was poisoning the soil and poisoning food? You read here and there where they poison this food and they poison this crop and so on. But since man is so evil, why wasn't he poisoning it for millions of years so that it was just spread all over the earth, that the soil has been poisoned everywhere you go? Because you notice wickedness increases. So millions of years would mean man would travel every place and he would have carried his evil with him and poisoned everywhere. Instead, you want to go someplace in quote-unquote nature, you call it, so you can get to the not poisonous areas of the earth to live and have a sweet, calm, nice, healthy life with clean air to breathe. You see the problem? If it was millions of years, we would have gone everywhere and populated everywhere and brought our evil there, everywhere. But if it's only a couple thousand years, I could more see us being coerced or guarded and kept in smaller areas, so that we're living in cities and so on, and we're clustered, so that those are the areas that are poisoned and the air is bad and so on. But the other areas are not populated because there is no millions of years of living for people to travel in those areas to live there, so they remain healthy. Also, where are the artifacts and tools in overwhelming collections, which I started out talking about, of ancient or prehistoric archaeologists who wanted to find out about their past? I think I'll end with this one here. Let me talk about this. I'm going to look at this here. Hold on. Let's look, because at every point, people are going to want to find out stuff. If you got, because these are the ones I see with the money in the news and with these organizations that are doing massive excavations, archaeological diggings and so on. These are white people from after the time of European conquest. They're the ones with the money and they're ruling the earth and they can do all this stuff. They got the money, the backing, and their governments favor all this stuff. So since European conquest and domination of the West, they've been doing all this stuff in great detail, right? And more so in the past 100 or 200 years. You're telling me that archaeological digging seemed to have really taken off more in a heightened manner in the past 100 or 200 years. But for millions and millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of years that we've been on the earth, then you're telling me those people back then didn't do massive archaeological diggings as well to find out about their past? Because if somebody lived 200 million years ago, they, in their societies, they didn't want to find out who was living 500 million years ago. Because I'm telling you, I find some crazy numbers. You know what I think? These crazy numbers are coming from made-up theories or doctrines in religions. You know, there's religions in India, for example, and over in other parts of the East and so on. Some crazy stuff. That's what I think. But look now, I'm running a search here for the first archaeologist. William Flinders Petrie is another man who may legitimately be called the father of archaeology. He was the first to scientifically investigate the Great Pyramid in Egypt during the 1880s. Look at this one, how stuff works. The first archaeologist could date back all the way to ancient times. And I don't want to make this much longer, so go read it if you want. But basically, some of these sites are talking about the first archaeologists. They go back to times when we know about in more recent history, if you would consider millions of years. Like this site here at thoughtco.com, I can't see the full string. It says, The History of Archaeology, Part 1, The First Archaeologists. It says here, the history of archaeology as a study of the ancient past has its beginning at least as early as the Mediterranean Bronze Age. Archaeology as a scientific study is only about 150 years old. Again, I'm saying, if man today feels the need only under 200 years ago to do archaeological searching, because you would say he has grown, we've matured and so on. You're telling me people have lived for hundreds of millions of years and they never matured to want to find out what was before them? You take pictures with your camera because you want to keep track of what happened before in your life. You're telling me people, and you go and you dig back and you look back every few years at stuff, especially when you move and you unpack and you look back at what happened in your life through pictures and through boxes that you stored with books or old stuff from your life, from your past, from your childhood. And man, millions of years ago, didn't want to search back to see what his other millions of years old ancestors were like, where they lived and what they did. And you don't hear about those archaeologists in the ancient writings. Why? Is it because we weren't really here for like 500 million years? A billion years? Which seem, those high numbers seem to match the billions and billions of stars they're telling us about. You get it? Stargazing and all that. Religious stargazing, watching the sun and the moon, the heavenly bodies, religion. Interest in the past, however, is much older than that. And I'm going to read this part and then stop. If you stretch, the definition enough, probably the earliest probe into the past was during New Kingdom Egypt, circa 1550 to 1070 BC, when the pharaohs excavated and reconstructed the Sphinx, itself originally built during the 4th dynasty Old Kingdom, about 2575 to 2134 BC from the pharaoh Khafre. They said there are no written records to support the excavation, so we don't know which of the New Kingdom pharaohs asked for the Sphinx to be restored. So basically, I mean, that's not going that far back. That's still falling in line with a lot of what we know of the old world. You see, everything seems to revolve around what's written in the Bible and all these other scrolls that they find from these other nations. But nothing of these scrolls are showing you any clear-cut stuff about people who are recording the large amounts of people who were living millions and millions of years ago and proving it by saying this is what they built. If only in a short time you can build an airplane and then end up building a spacecraft to go up on what you call the edge of the atmosphere before you get destroyed by the Van Allen belt radiation and so on, because you can't go any further than that. And if only a relatively short time, once you take power and set up your new American kingdom and so on, or your new Russian kingdom, that you can build all that. Why is it that men built, and they say we are dumber now than ancient people? Why is there people that lived millions and millions of years did not figure out how to do all these things so that we can find the artifacts? You show me some silly painting and carving, said there was a spaceship from the Egyptian Empire. That's all fake as far as I can tell. But you're not going to believe that. But then I don't have to believe you either, because you can see a carving, and the moment when I see carving, I think of carving, inscription and writing that came round about the time they're telling me of then Sumer, if I go with that kind of information. So if all those stuff is being done around Sumer time, writing and carving and drawing stuff, then that means to me that it was around that time that people carved those things, or after that, and carve a spaceship and a watch. Same people were wearing wristwatch and carve a spaceship upon some, along with some other Egyptian writing or whatever, or in some temple. That does not prove that spaceships were there for millions and millions of years. Why have they not found, and if people are building spaceships, when you build spaceships, you're not going to stop. You're going to increase it. Just like when you build cars, you didn't stop. You build more and more cars, and more car companies come up. And they were building bicycles, they build more and more bicycles. And they built carts to be dragged by horses and so on. They built more and more carts, and carts were all over the place. They built chariots like that, more and more chariots. So when you build spaceships, more and more of it come up. Why are the dumber people now, because they said ancient people were smarter and we've been dumbed down. If dumber people today are increasing what they build, why do you only find one spaceship drawn there? If you look into all this Egypt stuff, you'll see that stuff. Why then were the wiser people of antiquity, of ancient times, of prehistory times, they say, from millions and millions and millions and millions of years ago, why did they not leave their spaceships behind? And why aren't we finding the buried remains of broken spaceships and a lot of them intact as well? The broken parts of spaceships buried under the earth. They find everything else, but they're not finding like 100,000 spaceships broken up under the earth and sticking out here and there, trees growing around and between them and so on. They got to chop up the tree roots to pull out the piece of the spaceship from so-called ancient astronauts from 200, 300, 400 million years ago. Why aren't they finding those things? Because it's a trick. People have to wake up and start smartening up. It's a trick. Oh, they found this spaceship. One day they're going to tell you that. Some primitive spaceship. And they find one. And then they find 3. Why can't they find many? And find not just one, but many spaceship yards where they were building them, spaceship factories, or many spaceship airports, might I say, where these things were taking off and landing from astronauts that came out of space. You see, if somebody's going to dig, if some great war happens now and people who survive and who wants to look back in history starts to move around the earth, they're going to find lots of runways from airports, and they're going to figure out this was an airport because they'll find lots of airports airport runways all over the earth in many, many countries. And they're going to find a lot of airplanes. And even if they don't know to call it airplanes, then they're going to give it their name. But, airplanes, and they'll find records and they'll realize, oh, these people called it airplanes. You see, they're going to find it because we had many airports, many airplanes, lots of them flying in the sky all the time. Many airplane runways. Somebody is going to look on some ancient Egyptian temple or wherever the temple was. It's a long time now, so I don't remember. Until they see a spacecraft drawn right here, a spaceship. So they had spaceship and spaceship come from stuff. Why did you not find many records of the people then talking about this device and the name that they call it? You have to call it your own name, spaceship, because you have spaceship today. You see, I'm trying not to tell you because you'll cuss me out, tear up this knowledge and spit it out. Because I can't prove it. Yet you aren't proving anything. You are not proving to me that ancient people from 200 million years ago came from outer space and drew that spaceship on that temple. Modern men drew that carving there. And tell you somebody, an astronaut, was wearing a wristwatch. See the wristwatch in his hand. And modern man drew the carving of the spacecraft on that wall or temple, wherever it was. Modern man did that. Modern man doesn't necessarily mean like 100 years ago. It could have been like 2,000-3,000 years ago or something like that. But basically you get the idea, modern compared to 500 million years ago, right? They did it in more later times. No matter what you do and what you read and what you study and what you think and how convincing it seems, everybody comes back with their time to civilization picking up 6,000 to 10,000 years ago, because that's when it seems that man really came up, because that's all we're finding. If that's all you're finding, it is a good indication that that's all there is. Now, until you prove to me that you found 2 million spaceships and you find 80 spaceship building yards in one country alone, and each of these spaceship building yards have probably thousands of debris and broken up and parts from spaceships that they were building, and the junk yards of the ones that went bad, just like you have a car wrecking yard now. When you find all that stuff, come share it with me, because I really want to look at it, so I can try to see if really we've been here for many millions of years. Now, it could be that since everybody's searching, that we've really been here for millions of years. But until I see some clearer indications, then it's difficult to accept that, to go with that thinking. So I'm just searching like everyone else. It doesn't seem likely so far.